Anyway, thank you very much for inviting me to present to you today. As mentioned, I'm Elizabeth Kingston. I'm the General Manager for Nunavut with the Northwest Territories and Nunavut Chamber of Mines, and my office is here in Iqaluit, actually just down the hall past the coffee shop right here in this building. So I didn't have to come too far, even though the storm did slow me down a little bit yesterday and I had to get stuck in my house, so I apologize for that. So next slide, please. So just before I get into the details of how we use multimedia and the internet in our industry, I did want to just provide a little bit of background about the Northwest Territories and Nunavut Chamber of Mines and what it is that we do. The Chamber of Mines is a nonprofit mining industry association that was formed in 1967, and it's the leading champion for responsible mineral development in the Northwest Territories and Nunavut. So there's two main functions for the Chamber. The first is to educate and advocate on behalf of the minerals industry as a whole in both territories. And the second is to act as a single window for landowners such as the Crown and NTI to seek industry expertise on policy. And so this allows our members to provide input collectively but anonymously, because it's the chamber that presents information as a whole on behalf of the industry rather than individual members. And so we're able to collect a nice diversity of input on any given issue and present that back to the person that's asking the question. So I'll just explain a little bit about our industry here in the north. We have very rich mineral potential here, and that's because we have a diverse geology. The two territories host 8 geological provinces, which you can see here in all of those different colors. And each of those provinces contains very distinct mineral deposits and therefore mining opportunities. Now, because we are so big and remote, it's very expensive to work here, and that means we're underexplored compared to the rest of Canada. But we do rank very high in terms of our mineral potential, and in fact we were ranked 7th out of 93 jurisdictions that were measured by the Fraser Institute about 2 years ago. So a lot of potential from that perspective. Here's another map. We like maps in mining. And this is just to give you a perspective, a little bit of perspective on the size of our territory. And you can see that we've overlaid our map of Nunavut and Northwest Territories over a map of Europe, and it's about the same size. And the 5 little dots that you see are operating mines. There's 3 diamond mines in Northwest Territories, as well as a tungsten mine, which you probably don't hear as much about. And over here in Nunavut, we have the single operating gold mine at Meadowbank. Now, Canada, or Nunavut, is the least mapped region in Canada, but it's also the most heavily subsidized region of Canada, and it receives the largest per capita transfer payments and grants to support its economy. We do have fewer economic options here. There's no forestry, there's no farming, there's no manufacturing, but our large size and geological diversity makes non-renewable resources a really viable economic advantage. So this is a bit busy, this chart, but it's just showing some of our advanced exploration projects. And what I mean by that is that they have entered or are about to enter the environmental review process with the NIRB, which is the Nunavut Impact Review Board. And I kind of keep this data up to date, and it comes right from NIRB, from their updates. And here's another map, and that just basically, that just shows some of those sites that were on that earlier slide. And you can see our industry's been pretty busy over the past number of years, and we're advancing a number of projects that could become mines in the very near future. And you can also note on this map that there's possibilities in every region in Nunavut as well, all 3. Most are advancing through the regulatory or feasibility study aspects or processes in their projects, and several now are trying to raise money for some of their capital and construction programs. So in this chart, I've tried to capture all that variety of infrastructure that these proposed projects will require. And you can see it's pretty daunting. We need roads, we need power, ports in a couple places, railways, lots of shipping, marine shipping needs. But that broad yellow bar there, I think is key, is of interest to this group, and they will all need communications infrastructure. It's a big important issue with our sites. So, to get to the kind of the questions of why we're actually here, I just want to give a little bit of history from our perspective. In our sense, the Inuit have always been self-reliant and have always been able to create their own welfare through the fur and sealing industries, for example. But these options are now starting to drop off for various reasons. But we believe that Inuit do have the opportunity to become self-reliant again, but now they have to use, Nunavut in general have to use different tools, particularly if you want to participate in the mining industry. And this is going to take a lot of work if we want to be really successful here in Nunavut. If we want to see a high level of Inuit employment, for example, we're going to have to learn more. We're going to need better schooling or more accesses to different types of schooling so that Inuit and Nunavut can achieve the academic requirements that are going to be necessary in order to take on higher level positions within our industry. And they need business experience to take on more responsibility on the business side of our industry. So all of that service and supply that feeds into the mining industry, there's lots of opportunities there as well. So Nunavut now can use the internet to leverage the skills and business acumen that they're going to need in order to succeed. And the internet can be a very good research tool for all of this as well. High speed will help in holding virtual meetings, just as one example. But probably more importantly, the internet is a good educational tool, and it can be used for things such as distance learning, which our colleague had mentioned a little bit there earlier. And this is going to be a key option for Nunavut because of the territory's vastness and the expense to travel. So speaking more specifically to our industry, exploring via the internet is also possible and will be used more and more. In due course, explorers will be able to collect geophysical data from their computers, provided that we have good speed and bandwidth. And to some extent, environmental monitoring can also be done by remote sensing, and this will only get better with time. We do need to set our sights high on how to become self-reliant, recognizing that our chief economic advantage here in Nunavut is mining. And then we need to start to create a plan that uses the internet as a tool to become increasingly more participatory in our industry. So rather than use that excuse that it's too expensive to go to school in the South, we need to bring the school to us on the internet. Rather than saying it's too costly to prospect a long ways from home, we can go online and view assessment files and geophysical data and maps and geological maps to research where you might want to stake a claim. And rather than believe that it's too expensive to charter a plane to go and stake claims on the ground, you can stake them online. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. So these possibilities are coming fast upon us because of the internet. Now, even if you don't work directly in the industry, you can still research and buy commodity trades and stock online. And that's another opportunity for you to, or for anybody to actually build wealth as a result of our industry. So a couple of ideas that we talked about. My head office is in Yellowknife, and we were talking about this presentation and thinking that maybe it was a little bit indirect and not normally a topic that we get into very much. But we talked about a couple of ideas around maybe there's ideas for a pan-Nunavut exploration company that has prospectors in every community. And they're all linked together by the internet. So for example, someone in Kuluktuk might have an idea about an exploration project or a site near Repulse Bay. So they could discuss with the prospectors who live in Repulse and actually have them go out and look on the land and see what's going on there and be able to do that at a much lower cost. And so all of these plans could be discussed by looking at maps and data online. And so we think that, that could be a powerful tool right there, just linking those kinds of people together. And another more broad opportunity might be to consider building up some sort of a business training, research, education network, which we kind of coined an opportunity network. And the goal would basically be to increase Nunavut self-reliance and increase personal success. And again, using the internet as a powerful tool to affect that kind of positive change. So, okay, what tools does the Chamber of Mines itself use with respect to the internet and multimedia to share information? We rely very heavily on email. I'm thinking of my boss, and I tend to use the word emailer. He's a heavy use of it. It is the primary source of communication that we use between my office here in Iqaluit and my head office in Yellowknife. My boss is in Yellowknife, so it's a key communication tool between us. But our industry generally relies on a number of web-based tools for communication, and particularly with stakeholders, including communities and individual members. So I've just listed a few of the tools that we have here. One is that I use every day. It's called MailChimp, and basically it's an online tool that helps you to create newsletters and media releases and all that sort of stuff. It provides templates and also a database to allow you to build up your outreach group. Right now, we distribute our monthly newsletter, media clips, and news releases almost every day, or just about every day, to over 1,500 people. And this is all a free service. It's really cheap, easy to do once you get it all set up. A little more broadly, a number of our companies will use internet to provide company financial updates. And they use web-based and teleconference-based tools for those kinds of purposes. So for example, if Sean Boyd, who's the CEO of Agnico Eagle, is going to make a presentation on the third quarter results for the company, you can simply log on, you can see his PowerPoint presentation, his slides online, and then you just dial in by teleconference on your phone and hear the presentation, and you can ask questions or send a note through to the moderator or whatever, and it's just like you're right there in Toronto with Mr. Boyd himself. Another sort of related tool that comes up quite often is the use of webinars, and this is primarily for training purposes. And I just brought up this example of MIR, which is the Mining Industry Human Resource Council, and they're a good partner of ours. They do a lot of collection of labor data that is related to our industry. And I just brought this one up because it is timely. It's called Understanding Hiring Requirements and Available Talent for Canadian Mining. And as it happens, just next week, I believe, on October 16th, they are going to be talking about labor issues and labor items related to the central and mountain regions. So if you wanted to log on there, I think it's free. If it's not free, it should be pretty nominal in terms of fees. So those are just some examples of outreach that we do. Probably one of my favorite tools, I set up a Twitter account for the Chamber. As of a couple of days ago, when I put this presentation together, we had 238 followers, but I'm getting new followers almost every day. They come from all over the world, which is really neat. And the nice thing about Twitter is that it's free, it's easy, and it has great reach. And the other, I guess, just in terms of the specific questions that we had for the presentation in terms of audience, it does tend to be used more by a younger audience, but that marries very well with the Nunavut demographic because it is such a young population here. So you'll see a lot of people walking around with their Blackberries or whatever. So hopefully they're all following the @MiningNorth tag there. And the great thing about that is that if you do see someone, such as an EDO in Arviat, for example, who's a great tweeter, by the way, he follows our stuff and he has a big following. So if he likes something that he sees, he will retweet, and then it goes out to all of his audience. So we don't even know how far we're reaching here, but it's a big outreach. But more in terms of two-way communication, a number of our companies have set up blogs on their websites. And I've just put up the one here for Areva. Areva Resources is in charge of the Kikivik uranium project, which is coming through environmental review in the Kivik region. And so lots of people have, many questions about uranium and nuclear energy. And so it's a way to go on, ask questions, and have a timely response back from an industry expert or maybe some other people in the field. And I'm glad to see young Ethan there in Arviat. He might want to hop on there, and maybe he can give some advice about some of the research that he's been doing. So those are just some of the sort of the broad-based tools that we are using in our industry to help communicate with communities. So a major regulatory change that's coming down the pipes right now is the split of the Northwest Territories and Nunavut mining regulations into two separate regulations, one for Nunavut and one for Northwest Territories. And this will be rolled out in 2014. And in Northwest, it's due to two major issues. One is devolution in Northwest Territories, and for Nunavut, it's the introduction of what's called online map selection. And map selection will change the way that mineral claims are acquired from an on-the-ground staking process to a selection of predefined grid cells which are presented on an online map. So this allows map staking to be done online rather than in the field. And in this way, you can pull up geological maps and satellite images on your computer right at home. And these are the tools that prospectors and geologists are going to be using more and more. And all of that geophysical mapping is done digitally, and it's going to be available online. So this is a significant online advancement that directly relates to our industry, and it's probably the key change that's coming down the pipes in relation to this overall theme of how the internet and multimedia is being used. So that's basically it. You can just finish off my last slide. Certainly hope that you'll provide some support to the Chamber and our activities. You can visit us in person at the Iqaluit office here or in Yellowknife if you happen to be over that way, or you can get in touch with us via some of these online methods that I've applied here. So I've also brought some packages with me that are at the back of the room. These were items that were put together for the mining symposium, which takes place every April here in Iqaluit. So there were some packages that were left over that have lots more information about our industry, but there's a few goodies in there too, so you might want to grab yourself a package if you're interested in hearing more about our industry. So thanks very much.